Welcome aboard the Expatability Chat podcast, helping expat parents navigate moving and living overseas with their families. With Carole Hallett Mobbs, expat life mentor and consultant and founder of expatchild.com. I'm Carole, your resident expat expert, and I'm here to help you live the expat life you dream about and deserve. If you're planning a move abroad, or if you're already living your expat life, or even if you're planning a move back home, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, I'll offer you experienced insight, sensible advice, and practical information, along with some sugar-free, no-bullshit tips and tricks to help you on your way, so that you and your children can live your expat experience to the full. There are so many layers to this expat life that you need to know about, but often you don't know what you need to know, and that's what I aim to help you with. Because knowledge is power, and I want you to have the best expat experience you possibly can. So, let's get straight into today's episode. This episode is a little different from all my others, as, for the very first time, I actually have a guest on my show. Yes, it's true. This won't be a regular thing, by the way, which makes it even more special. So, please meet Roz Edwards. Roz lived in Malawi for 10 years before repatriating quite suddenly to the UK back in 2004. She moved with her 2 sons and just 4 cardboard boxes. And she's bravely agreed to join me to talk about all kinds of aspects to expat life. Raising kids overseas, repatriating, the timing of a move, and her special kind of entrepreneurship, and all sorts of other things, as you'll hear. Welcome to Expatability Chat, and I've now got my very, very first interview with the lovely Roz Edwards, and you'll learn how innovative and basically brave as hell Roz is as we go through this chat. And it's a total Carole winging it chat, along with Sumi the cat, as usual. So let's just see what happens. So welcome to the show, Roz. Lovely to see you.
Thank you so much for asking me, Carole. Thanks a lot.
Now, Expatability Chat started in the middle of lockdown, and the first episode I recorded was all about unwanted and unexpected repatriations. Mm-hmm. And I believe that you have a little insight into this yourself. So would you like to give a little background to your unexpected and unwanted repatriation?
Yeah, for sure. So I was born in England. And the first time I went on a plane was when I was 22. And I flew to Lusaka in Zambia and then into Lilongwe in Malawi. So my partner and I had an African art business. And we'd been invited to go out to work with the artists by an entrepreneur who was there. And to work with the artists and then bring African art basically back to the UK, because we had an African art shop in Glastonbury. So basically I went and I came back and forth several times, but overall I was there for 10 years. And we did have a breakup as well whilst I was there. I took my youngest son, who was 18 months at the time, with us when I first went. My second son was actually born in Malawi. So then I brought them back to the UK, because basically, although we'd split up and I went and I started an internet publishing business and the boys were doing well at school, it was just the right time. Basically, it's like there were several things that were holding me back. Like, it's, as a single woman in Africa, it's very, very difficult to sort of get the business. And although everything was okay, it was just like, okay, I need to think about the boys now, because more than anything. And I just thought the best thing to do is let's go home. Let's go back to England. So that's what we did. And that was in 2004. So it's a little while back yet, but it was, such a memorable event, really, that we sort of left paradise and ended up on a council estate in Nottinghamshire, which was the biggest shock of my life.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, Africa stays in your blood. I think it's quite common knowledge for anybody that's lived there that once that beautiful red dust has touched you, it never actually leaves you. I mean, literally as well. I've actually got shoes in my wardrobe that I've got red dust all over them and it will not come off.
Yes, and it's not coming off, basically.
It will
Either.
never come off, but Africa does stay in your heart
Oh my
for a
God.
very long time. And moving back when you've got children is actually really tricky. And one of the most searched for phrases on my podcast and my website is moving with teenagers,
Okay.
which is quite scary to me. Now, I moved with a teenager. It's not something that I would recommend.
Sure.
Yours were a little younger, but still at a vital point in their English education.
Mm-hmm.
English education is strangely more stringent than any other country in the world. And if you don't get them into, for example, a secondary school at the right age, then it does get stuck. And it is very difficult and is becoming more so as the government changes the whole education setup.
Sure.
You landed back in the UK with your two lovely boys. It was a shock to you, I'm sure, coming from the heat of Africa to no doubt rainy England.
Well, luckily when we landed at Heathrow, the sun was shining, so that was good.
That helps.
That really helped, yes.
Well, we landed in February to the beast of the east. That was not fun. So were you able to get the kids into school relatively easily, or?
Yeah, everything was really easy because literally the first thing that I did was sorted out housing, because I didn't obviously have anywhere to live. All I had was the two boys, which was everything, and then 4 cardboard boxes of things that we'd brought along with us, memories mainly. But no, everything got sorted out, reasonably quickly. We had a house within about 2 to 3 weeks, I think, after we'd come back. And literally we arrived back around September the 4th, and then my eldest went straight into secondary school, literally.
Oh, perfect timing.
Right, here's a bike, there we go, it's that way.
That is absolutely fantastic. Yeah, my daughter wasn't able to go into school for a year.
Oh.
I do try and tell people, my clients, please take note, if you're moving to the UK, of the timing of their age. If you can get them into secondary school from the first year, then do it. Any later, it's going to be trouble.
That was a major decision, actually, that or helped me make that decision of when to go, when to leave. And it was just because he was at that age that he was going to start secondary school. Then it was like, right, now, let's go now. So, Mom, Dad, can I have some tickets, please? 3 air tickets, please. And then let's go. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. So you'd been out of the UK for 10 years?
Yes.
What were your first impressions of how much it had changed when you arrived back?
Well, Malawi is a very sleepy kind of place. So it's like Mawa Slimata, as they say, which basically means tomorrow is forever. So if you don't have to do things today, you can do them tomorrow. And things like very little traffic on the roads, things like that. And then the first thing I noticed coming back to England was the speed that everything was going at, because we'd come from Heathrow up into Nottinghamshire. So we're up the M1.
Similar route.
Whoa, it's traffic.
Yes.
It was incredibly fast. So that was one of the biggest things that I'd noticed.
One of the biggest things, strangely, I noticed was the amount of litter, because, of course, in Africa, people pick up the litter to use it. And here, such a mess.
Yeah. Well, you see that all over the roads, even now when you're driving around, don't you? That
it's weird stuff like that. The other thing that I personally found difficult was understanding English.
Oh, okay. That's
I couldn't
interesting.
get my ear in at all. But one of the hardest things was helping my daughter understand pop culture, for want of a better phrase, helping her integrate as much as possible with the way teenagers are in the UK, which was not easy, bearing in mind I'm nowhere near being a teenager. And wondered if you had any tips, or were your kids just straight in there and able to cope?
Being boys, quite outgoing, but yes, they were straight into just go and get into everything. And it was a real thing of discovery for them, because we'd lived out in the bush, and yes, they'd gone to school and had school friends and all the rest of it, and some afternoon activities. Yeah, coming back to England, then finding all these different things to do. I mean, they were just all over it, absolutely all over it. And it was, a case of I really did have to go out and look for them. Where are you? You need to come in for your dinner. Where are you?
Oh no, that sounds...
Maybe that's the difference between boys and girls.
I think there is a huge difference between boys and girls. Somebody I was talking to yesterday, we were just discussing the international language of soccer. Just give a couple of boys a football, and it doesn't matter what language they speak, they're immediately best friends.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Also, idioms and sayings, because I'd consciously stopped using them because I talked to so many people from different countries.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily understand the weird language that Britons use.
I know we've got a very strange language, really, haven't we?
I've had to teach my daughter quite a few idioms, which I was not expecting to do. I think bringing her up overseas was brilliant, and your boys as well, having the insight and outsight, if you like, to a whole world so far away from the way that England works.
Absolutely, because they've got a real opportunity. I mean, that they went to like an international private school, which the school, I mean, I can remember the school fees being like £500 a term. You know, it's like, what a bargain.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like, that would be great. And because again, we lived in the bush, they're actually, when we first went there wasn't a TV station in Malawi. There was I think two radio stations, one in English, one in Chichewa. I mean, they can speak, whether they can now or not, I don't know, but they could at the time, they could speak fluent Chichewa as well. So they really integrated with the whole, African lifestyle, rather than sort of maybe the expat lifestyle, whereby you're only mixing with your own crowd or the people that you know from school. I mean, my youngest, I remember coming back from town one day, and he was with his nanny, and they're both up a mango tree. And then when they came down, he had just this wash of mango juice where he'd just been eating and eating and eating mangoes. So that's the kind of thing that they did when they were little and growing up, rather than what happens here is, we're all in front of the TV or, in front of the screens or on phones all the time and not going out so much. Whereas these two, they were off out doing all sorts, and not influenced by any media or constant marketing that you even get, just from watching TV here, with the adverts and everything. They never had any of that. So I remember my eldest, when it was a parents' evening, and I went in and spoke to one of the teachers, and he said, "Your son's got a really worldly view of everything." And I said, "You do know where we've been for the last 10 years, don't you?" He says, "Oh, no." I said, "In the middle of the bush in Malawi, basically." He says, "Oh," he says, "that explains it." And I said, "Yeah." I said, because he's got he sees things so differently, he really does.
A greater worldview is a real gift to have, isn't it? And that is one of the reasons that I say to as many people as possible, move and live overseas with your children. And they get a view that you just cannot emulate in a classroom in the UK.
No, it's all those experiences. It's the warmth. Of course, it's the warmth. It's the mangoes and the guavas.
It's the African way of life. Yeah, they'll remember the language. It does come back.
I'm sure if they actually went back, that they would pick it up. It would just come back to them so quickly.
Yeah, I think it lives in a little filing cabinet behind your head somewhere, and it suddenly reappears when you least expect it. You are one of the most innovative people that I have ever met.
Thank you.
We'll move on to what you're doing in a moment. I cannot wait. But you mentioned just now that you had a publication in Africa. So you set up your own business based on what you found was needed over there. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Because something that many expat partners can't do is work overseas due to visa issues.
Yeah.
But some of us can set up our own businesses, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. So can you tell me, please, about your Friday publication?
Yes, for sure. So firstly, I had a business residence permit whilst I was there that I got very soon after the breakup with my former partner. So I was free, basically, then to do whatever I wanted to do in terms of business. And I'd actually, I had a riding school for a little while because I'm a riding instructor and I absolutely love horses. So I did that for a little while. And then that all came to an end. And I wanted to learn how to design websites. So my neighbour at the time had literally just launched Malawi's second internet service provider. So the government set one up first. And then, my neighbour basically set up like the next one. So, of course, they've all got computers in their office and everything. And I just said, "Do you know what?" I said, "Would you have a spare computer and I could just come in and learn how to use it?" I said, "And if there's any phone calls or maybe you want the office tidied up or, speak to customers when they come in, I can do all of that." I said, "I don't want paying for it." I said, I just want to learn this skill." So it's like, yeah, for sure. And of course, because we were out in the middle of nowhere and he was literally next door, he used to give us a lift into the office and back in the morning. So I didn't have to worry about transport and all the rest of it. And then, so I learned how to design websites. And then one of the directors said to me, have you ever thought about doing any email like marketing or anything like that? And I said, well, I've been reading about it actually, and I find it quite fascinating. So yes, I am. Now, because they were a newly set up internet service provider, of course, they had 500, say, subscribers. We would like a newsletter that goes out to them once a week. Would you be able to put something together? And I'm like, oh my God, yeah, I've got 500 people here to talk to. Like, absolutely. I basically made a newsletter that was called Thank God It's Friday. And it was basically like a What's On newsletter. So I would go around to the different places like the sports club and the different bars that were open, the hotels, and right, what events have you got going on? I can put them in this and then give us your email address. I'll subscribe you to it as well. And it basically turned into an online magazine that I then got, you see, being in a sort of like a small expat sort of community as well. I did all my business down at the watering hole at 5 o'clock. Because I'd go in there and the director for Carlsberg would be in there. The director for Total Fuels would be in there. Oh, hi, Roz, what are you up to? And I said, oh, I'm just doing this. Because, yeah, we've seen it, after a few publications up. Can we advertise in it, please? And I'm like, oh, money. Like, yes, of course you can. So they would advertise in it. And I started getting some regular money in as well. So that sort of helped with school fees and my rent and all the rest of it. And and it kind of just took up from there. And then I also sort of got involved in actually organising events for Carlsberg. I did quite a lot with Carlsberg, actually, because their first brewery in Africa is in Malawi. So, there's a nice, great big story there as well. So to be involved with them was just absolutely wonderful. And then Malawi television came out. So I started mixing with all the crew and everything there. Didn't really have anything to do with the actual production because it was, it's a government thing, but that was really, really good fun. And then there were local radio stations that I used to go on and all really good fun. So I got known as Friday, basically. That was my name. It's like, there she is, there's Friday, and it was really good fun. And I was really sad to have left it because it obviously came to a time where the boys are more important than me trying to, do this thing. So when I came back, like one of the first things I did when I was in England is go, well, I'll just carry on with the Friday team. It's Friday. I'll just carry on with that. And then I had this big idea that I could do, Friday in Nottingham, Friday in Leicester, Friday in London, and it's kind of, this is how my brain works. It's like, this can go really massive. But in Malawi, like the email communications, even though I can remember the nightmares sometimes connecting on the telephone lines, and then you find out that, oh no, the copper lines have been stolen up by the exchange or something, But it was a really, really important part of communication, even though it was only at sort of the 20, I mean, it's really advanced now, but, 20 years ago, it was really at the start of that kind of a communications in Africa. But despite that, it was really, really popular. And the open rate on my emails were 95% or something, it was ridiculous. I know, it's a dream, isn't it? And so it was amazing. So I did do it in print format as well whilst I was in Malawi. But then coming back to England, I thought I'll do it again. But of course, you've got communications flying at you from so many different angles that just an email going out, it's not vital. It's not important. You can find information all over the place. You just have to go and search for it, don't you?
These days,
Yeah. Well, even 20 years ago, people were searching for stuff rather than, I'll subscribe to her email because she's collating all the information. So it just kind of fell down really when I came back here. So I thought, right, okay. Boom, we'll keep all the domain names and everything, but we'll just shelve it. Yeah,
things changed so quickly. Before I moved to Japan, I actually had a magazine myself, and it was a hard copy free magazine doing pretty much the same sort of thing. Advertisers, but I had to sell that business to move to Japan and never quite got it out of my system.
There's something about it with all the deadlines and everything. It's exciting stuff to do.
Yes, I do love a dreadline, as I call them. Enlivening, I think the word might be. I started Expat Child as a kind of a magazine at the time. It's evolved into something different. I think being able to evolve as life goes, especially with expat life, is absolutely vital. And you and I have been able to see how technology has changed over the last 20 years or so, or even 30 years, let's be honest, because I am that old.
Malawi's been really interesting, and communications all over Africa is, instead of saying going through the whole process like we've been through here in England, we're still relying on all the original telephone lines and everything that have been put in. Malawi went straight for, right, we'll have our own satellite then. So we basically got this massive, great big satellite dish that was at the top of the build, put it up on the top of the building. And we were in the office and like, oh, we can download a film in like 2 seconds. Like, this is incredible.
Wow.
And then they built like a microwave network off of it. So we'd ping, obviously, all the magic pixie dust stuff that flies around and makes the internet work. And they could like jump onto that instead of maybe going around the whole investment of fibre optic cables, and which I believe they have done in South Africa, actually. But I mean, you're never going to get fibre optic cables from, say, Johannesburg up to Blantyre. That's just not happening.
No, we did have fibre in. I mean, that's all very well, but when the electricity doesn't work, it's a bit pointless, isn't it?
Oh gosh, yes, yeah. And power cut.
Load shedding game.
Yeah, we know the load shedding game. Yeah.
So, quick tip: if anyone's thinking of setting up a business online in Africa, just be aware that you probably won't have electricity for 10 hours of the day.
And here's a generator you could buy.
And they are loud.
Generators, yeah.
Yeah, you got to get your own generator.
Yeah, definitely.
So you settled in pretty quickly. You're somebody that hits the ground running. And if you're not running, you're inventing new businesses.
I am. My brain just goes all the time.
So you've done horse riding teacher, you've done mixing with all sorts of people at the local club and setting up your own online business. And then you're back to the UK, where I believe you may not have been as employable as some people may be.
No.
I don't think either of us are employable.
Well, I mean, first of all, it was scary because I hadn't been in England for so long. And I'd been used to the life of running my own business. So I looked at a few jobs that I thought I might like to do. I did a bit of agency work. I went and looked after someone's horses for a little while. But always, once an entrepreneur, always an entrepreneur. You can't keep away from it. It was always ticking in my head that I can make a lot of money if I make a business. Whereas if I go and work for somebody, I don't have qualifications, didn't go to university, I'm not going to earn the money that I would like to earn. So I need to find something to do. So I set up as a retail consultant because I'd had the African art shop in Glastonbury before. Had that done pretty much sort of like 10 years whilst I was in Malawi as well. And I was watching daytime TV, and I was watching Mary Portas walking around with a clipboard and telling people how to do this and do that. And I thought, well, I can do all of that. So I'm going to be the next Mary Portas. So I set myself up as a retail consultant, but I would link the online stuff with their window displays and then their email marketing as well. So it was kind of a whole package.
I see.
And looking at everything in the business, the stock, the profitability, everything. So I set this website up and I was adding lots and lots of content. And then I thought, right, what else can I write about? So obviously, I'm a writer. So it's like, what else can I write about that is about retail that will be good on the website? And I just went, oh, mannequins. Of course, mannequins. But I'd never, ever thought about that. I knew nothing about them. I never thought about them before, never had to use them in an African art sort of setting. So I thought, well, I'll just go and start researching. And then I just found this amazing world that was really fascinating. And I've always been eco-minded as well. So it's like, well, what happens when it gets to the end of the life? And I was shocked what I found, that they're getting crushed and they're going into landfill and all the rest of it. So I thought, well, this is fascinating stuff. Anyway, let me just pretend I'm a mannequin company now. So that's basically what I did. I put a web page together and it said, all of these mannequins, this one's called Lucy, this one's called Jake, this one's called George, gave them all little profiles on the website and said they're all for hire, and put my phone number on and just didn't think anything of it. And then within 24 hours, because I know how to design websites, I know about SEO, my phone starts ringing with, oh, you've got mannequins. I need 6 in London next week. Please, can I hire them? And I was like, I haven't got any mannequins. So I said, I'll just go and check with the warehouse, what's your number? I'll call you back. Go off, make myself a cup of tea and think, right, what am I going to say? Phoned them back and said, oh, I'm terribly sorry, but they're all out on hire that week. And then the guy phoned me again in the afternoon, like, are you sure you've not got any? I can't find any anywhere. And then that evening, someone else phoned asking for mannequins to hire. And so I just thought, where's all this coming from? So I typed mannequin hire into Google and I was at the bottom of the first page. So I thought, well, this is easy. This is good. But what's wrong with all these people up above? So I went and I pretended to be a customer and I phoned them all. I'd like 5 mannequins in London next week. First of all, I was lucky if they even picked up the phone. Secondly, when they did pick up the phone, they were so far up themselves that they just didn't want to serve me. They didn't want to help me. So I just thought, oh, okay, maybe this is something that could go on. So I didn't have any money at all. So I said to Mum, Mum, can you buy me a mannequin, please? I said, I'm just mucking about with an idea, can you buy me one? So she lent me 50 quid and I went and found one on eBay or something, I think. And I've never paid her back for that. By the way, I've never paid her back.
Sorry.
But yeah. Well, she finds it hilarious. It's part of the story anyway. But yeah, over the next few months then, as long as somebody was asking me for mannequins in, say, 3 weeks' time, I had my benefit money, right? So it's like, right, everyone's eating baked beans on toast. I'm buying a whole load of mannequins. And they're like, oh, okay, whatever. And the house started filling up with them. And then more orders coming in and out. And then, so I was just mucking about with it. But, it was going on. There was business being done. And it came to a point where I had a phone call from the producers at ITV. And it was for Trini and Susanna's What Not to Wear. Yeah, and they wanted 10 of them. And the week before or a couple of weeks prior to that, I'd actually been to a bridal shop that was closing down in Nottingham. And I got 20 of these really beautiful old mannequins. So I said, yep, I've got them. And then I thought, you know what, this is cracking. This is absolutely brilliant. So what I did is I went and searched for domain names because I thought maybe this is something, right? So let me start it as a company. We'll go limited, we'll trademark a name, we'll go VAT registered and just, allow it to go big. And then I found the word mannequin. So manna, food from heaven, and kindred spirit. Because I had a rough time with the whole, coming back to England and everything and literally no money. And so I thought, it is like a gift from heaven. This is brilliant, because I can see that it can work. How big it's going to go, I have no idea. And so, so I registered the name Mannequin, trademarked it, limited company, VAT registered, all in. And then over the next 4 years, it was at a stage where I had 10 people working for us. We were turning over 500,000. I was able to buy the council house that I was in at the time. Yeah, just untold things going on. And then when my eldest son came and said, oh, I'd quite fancy being a pilot. And I went, oh, God. How about the RAF? No? Okay, right. How much is it going to cost? But I was able to fund it. Not all of it, but I was able to fund it for him. That early part of him getting his private license. And it's been such an absolute blessing, the whole thing. But it's all a journey, isn't it? I mean, it's like in Malawi, if I hadn't learned how to use a computer and design websites and email marketing and all that sort of thing, if I hadn't have learned that, Mannequin might not have happened. I always say that if I just had a big collection of mannequins and ready to hire them, people wouldn't want them. But it grew from nothing. And in actual fact, all I did was I just responded, in those early days, I responded to the demand for them.
Absolutely perfect. And as you say, manna, a gift, and it's enabled you to gift your eldest his dream as well. Yeah. And the way that it's all happened is so beautifully synchronized. And it's a cliche, but right place, right time. But right place, right time doesn't work unless you're prepared to grab it, run with it, fly with it in your case, and basically blag your way to the most interesting innovative business I have ever had pleasure of hearing about.
Well, yeah, because now Mannequin is 15 years old. It has its own property in Lincolnshire, which is like a 2-acre site. There's around about a collection of maybe about 15,000 mannequins. We're a visitor location. We get people coming to visit. We get people coming to film as well. So we do music videos there. That's really exciting. And then we've continued to prove that we are the people that come and hire your mannequins from us. And the other great thing about it, Carole, as well, is because it is an unusual business, I guess, in a way, that the amount of PR that I've had from it and the marketing, I mean, they do their own marketing, you know. This is Stephanie, by the way, everybody who's watching.
Yes, for those who are only listening, Roz is sat next to a beautiful mannequin called Stephanie, who sometimes misbehaves, but today she's been incredibly well behaved. So thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah, it's right. You can have a piece of cake later, Stephanie.
Yeah, she needs a bit of feeding up, I think.
Yeah. But I do call her my supervisor, because I never intended to set out with a mannequin. I didn't have that idea of, I'm going to set a mannequin business. It came to me. So part of my story is that I was abducted by mannequins. So she's the supervisor. Stephanie, who's sat next to me, is the supervisor. Keeps her eye on me, make sure that I'm doing my work properly.
We all need one of those. My supervisor has disappeared, thankfully, without switching off the computer. Yeah, it all worked out perfectly. You know, you had some bumps along the way, as everybody does in a journey, but without having the whole experience of living overseas, like you say, maybe Mannequin would never have happened.
Yeah.
And, you know, the whole sliding doors moment.
Yeah. All of those experiences that we have, sometimes they feel like they are the worst things that could possibly happen to us, and they probably are at the time as well. But I think there is a reason for all of these things, not just to make you stronger, but for you to be able to cope with something and succeed in something later. So, you know, you don't always realize it at the time, of course, you know. Things can be tough, but they do lead. You need to have that open mindset about it as well. I was very much, this is just going to be a little business that I'm going to start. I was like, no, we're going big, we're going massive. How far can I push it, you know? And interestingly, what's happened now is that I've actually scaled it down to a level where this is perfect. This is absolutely, you know, where I want it to be.
You have to live.
Sure.
The whole resilience is something I think that comes from expat life as well. And expat life in Malawi, you have to be resilient, and raising children overseas as well. And it sounds like they've got the resilience from you. The benefits of moving and living overseas. And
yeah, if anyone's got the opportunity to do it, go for it. It is such an amazing experience. I don't regret a minute of it.
No, exactly. The hiccups can be painful, but we've all got through everything, and we just keep going. And as you say, it's a journey. Yeah. And all we can do is grab it and make the absolute most of it.
Yeah.
So just to wind up here, what advice would you give to anyone repatriating with children?
If you know, I mean, for me, it was a sudden decision. It was like, okay, we're going now. And then it just all fell into place very quickly. But if you know the dates that you're coming back, then obviously the biggest thing is where are you going to live? Things like the schools and all the rest of it. For me, that was actually quite quick to get them into school and to get it. So I was really, really lucky. But obviously, you know, do research and everything before you come back. The other thing is maybe the time of year. Because if you've been living in a hot country, either you're going to have to buy loads of thermals coming back to England, and 15 layers and, you know, 20 duvets on your bed and everything. Because, I mean, I remember a time coming back from Heathrow, and it was in November. So obviously that's real, you know, leading up almost into the rainy season in Malawi, where it's getting really, really hot. But when I turned up at Heathrow, I was able to just be in a t-shirt, and I was like, but it's so cold out there. Everyone's got coats on, it's so cold. But it took me 3 days to get cold, which was really, really strange. But I just came to the conclusion that it was my bones were so warm. Like, yeah. That's what took the time. So yeah, that could be a really, really big shock. I mean, things like for the boys, their school started at 7:00 in the morning, and then they'd be finished at 12. Unless they had some afternoon stuff, but they'd always be home by 2:00 in the afternoon, you know, at least by then, if not sort of 12:30. And then that's very, very, very different, obviously, here.
Yeah, and that's another reason why so many expat parents can't work when they're overseas, because apart from the whole visa game, the schools are a very different time. You cannot do a 9 to 5 in South Africa, for example, because the school my daughter was at would send a message at 10:00 in the morning saying, oh, we're finishing at midday today. And there was there's no public bus. You can't go on the public bus. You have to do the school run. Yeah, and Germany was similar sort of hours. Wednesday half-day school.
Yeah.
And people don't think to look into that and expect that they can take the 9 to 5, which
Yeah.
is why entrepreneurs, I think, do best at expat life. And isn't it fun?
Yeah, much more fun. Much
Yeah,
more fun.
much
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, because you get to choose when you do your work, really, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And in Africa, when the electricity on, it does help.
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much for agreeing to be with me today, Roz.
Oh, I've absolutely loved it. Really
Just,
loved talking about it.
just let people know how they can find you, and I'll make sure that they're also in the show notes for this.
Yeah, wonderful. So I have my Mannequin website, so that's mannequin.com, mannakin.com. And then I also have my personal website as well, because based on all of my experience getting the PR for Mannequin, and I mean, I'm internationally known as the Mannequin Lady. And I do help people with PR, and even something coming like back full circle to It's Friday. I'm just about to launch a PR agency. And I'm also toying with the idea of bringing back It's Friday as well. Thank God it's Friday. So that's just something that's in the background. So my personal website is rosedwards.co.uk.
I'll make sure to add all those into the show notes. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Absolute pleasure.
And I'll see you again soon.
Definitely.
As ever, thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope you found this episode useful and interesting. If you found this podcast helpful, I'd be really grateful if you could subscribe, share, and give me a review. It really does help other people who may need to know about this stuff to find it, and I really, really do appreciate it. In the show notes that accompany this episode, you'll find information about my websites, about my downloads. I've got lists, I've got ebooks, I've got masterclasses, all sorts, and these will help you with every step of your expatting journey. You'll also find details about how you can work with me one-to-one if you wish, so that you can get personal advice tailored for your life and your move abroad, because everybody's different. And of course you can find me on your favourite social media. I've got a presence on most of them. Tag me, message me, tell your friends about me, and I look forward to learning more about you and your move overseas. Please do get in touch. Please check out expatchild.com for more free information and resources. Don't forget to join me next time for another episode. Until then, goodbye.